Time, Mr. Willard? Okay. All right. I am excited to be here, and what an opportunity this is. I'd like to start for a question for high school students. Can I have the first slide? Do I have slides? Okay. Oh, next one. Here's the question. What's your reason for being in high school? Okay. Now, I'm an assistant principal, and I have two goals for Irvington students. Okay. My first goal is that they're successful, whatever that means. And my second goal is that they're happy. And to this end, I ask this question to a lot of students. The overwhelming response, I get many answers, but the overwhelming response is, my reason for being in high school is so I can get into a good college. Now, I feel that's misguided because I think that's going to make you successful, but I don't know that that's going to make you happy. What I'm waiting for is that weird kid that comes up to me and very enthusiastically and emphatically, I put those two words together, for never mind, okay? But I'm waiting for that kid, that weird kid that says, the reason I'm in high school is to learn because it's awesome, okay? And before you tell me that student doesn't exist, they're out there, okay? In fact, I used to live with one. This is my brother, Jeff, okay? Now, Jeff has two superpowers. By the way, he's 2 years older than me. He has two superpowers. His first superpower is his ability to grow a very thick and lusty beard, okay, in a very short period of time. Now, what he does every year is my brother will grow out his beard, and then he'll have a raffle. He'll donate the money to charity, and then the winner of the raffle gets to tell him how to shave his beard through the week. So he normally doesn't have a Van Dyke like in this picture down here, but that's the reason why. His younger daughter made him send the picture to me with the bunny. That's why he has a bunny with that picture. Now, my brother, his second superpower is his ability to take on the different avenues and things he does in his life. And when it came to attacking high school, he's my idol, okay? Because he was the weird kid that said, I love learning. He'd wake up in the morning excited to come to school. He'd sit there in class and say, give me the information, okay? If he got a test or a paper, he was like, yeah, this is my opportunity to learn. When he'd come home at night, we'd sit around the dinner table and he'd just tell us about all these amazing things he learned in Mr. DePron's class, Miss Kyer's class. I remember hearing them all. And I thought, that guy's happy. I want some of what he's having, okay? In fact, the story I remember my freshman year, he was a junior, and I just got my schedule. And he said, who'd you get for English? And I told him the teacher, and he goes, that's perfect. He goes, this teacher has horrible classroom management. Everyone's running around doing stuff. He goes, but he's also really smart. And if you pay attention to him, he's going to teach just to you, and you're going to get so much out of that class. Now, that advice is coming from someone who is saying that learning is super important, not other things, okay? Now, if you think about this, next slide here. If your reason for school is learning, these are the byproducts. Number one, you're going to improve. If I want to learn, I'm going to improve. It happens. Mistakes are also okay. In fact, they're a big part of the learning process. If you make a mistake, that's fantastic. Now I know something I messed up on. Now I get to learn it. Great. Okay? Now, you might get into a good college. You might not. But your chances of getting into a good college are great if your focus is learning, not the grades. Okay? In fact, if you think about this, you're going to do well in assignments if you look at them as learning opportunities. Plus, your teacher is going to write you one heck of a recommendation, okay? Because teachers love students that are there to learn. They don't really like the students that are trying to nitpick grades, okay? And all this ends up with happiness. If I'm just worried, I'm improving, I'm proud of myself. If I realize mistakes are okay, I'm super happy. And am I going to be successful? Probably. My brother was the senior of the year at our high school. He also got into every prestigious university he wanted to. Not that that was important to him. But he had a big smile on his face that was important to me. Okay? Now, next. Conversely, if your reason for being in high school is to get into a good college, these are the byproducts. Number one, competition. In fact, if it's your best friend, but they're vying to get into the same university as you, you're always watching your back. And I'm going to tell you something. If your life is a competition, you're never going to win. There's always going to be someone out there that's going to be better than you. Okay? Next, mistakes are not okay. If you make a mistake, then that's someone else's opportunity to take that spot at that prestigious university, okay? And you start freaking out about that stuff. Might you get into a good college? Yeah, you might. In fact, if that's your focus, you can get into a good college, but you also might not, okay? It happens. And are you going to be able to deal with that? Now, finally, with all of this, if you're thinking about competition and making mistakes freaks you out, and you might not get into that good college, then you're going to have stress and you're going to have some anxiety. Which does not equate to happiness. Next slide here. Some data to back this up. In conjunction with St. Louis University Medical School, Irvington did a survey, okay? And I want to say this and premise this, that this is not just Irvington statistics. You can go to many high schools around the country and you're going to see similar things, okay? And the results are kind of shocking. In fact, they're not just kind of shocking, they're really shocking. 79.5% of our students have moderate to high anxiety. 54.5% of our students have moderate to severe depression. And then finally, 27.6% of our student body have clinical levels of what's called maladaptive perfectionism, where they feel like they can't make mistakes. Not surprisingly, the number one stressor for Irvington students on a 4-point scale with a 3.35 is the stress of getting into a good college. If you think about that, if that's my focus and my reason for being in school, these are the byproducts and the results. Next slide, please. Now's the point in my presentation where I start showing you diagrams. I love diagrams. They're the best learning tools ever. They're visual. They're open to interpretation. You can discuss them. This forum is not the best for discussing things. I'm just going to give you my opinions, but feel free to disagree with me in your mind right now. Okay? Now, this is a pretty simple slide. It says very happy on the top. That says unhappy down there, very motivated and unmotivated. I used the correct Roman numerals. I'm proud of myself. The math teachers showed me that. Okay? Now, based on that data, most of our students are in quadrant 4, where they're very motivated to try and get into this good college, but they're not happy. They're stressed and they have anxiety. Now, my guess is if you take those same students and you go back in time to kindergarten and first grade, their emphasis was probably learning. And if their emphasis is learning, they're very happy and very motivated. They're in quadrant 1. Okay? So sometime, in my opinion, sometime between elementary school and now, someone or something got to our students and said, the most important reason for being in high school is getting into that good college. And it shouldn't be. You should be that kindergartner or first grader when you come to high school and say, I'm excited to learn, let's go. Okay? Be the weird kid. And then you're going to be in quadrant 1 and you're going to be successful and you're going to be happy. Next slide, please. I love this slide. Okay, because this is several Irvington teachers made it. It started with Mr. Larson, who's one of our PE teachers, who said, we got to show something, show students what's going on. And he started with that happiness line in the middle. And then it went through several teachers, and then it ended up with Mr. Willer, our ASB director, who basically put it all together in this format, and we all said, that looks good. Now, if you look at the chart, above the happiness line, that's where you're happy. That's great. If you have a growth mindset and you're focused on the process, which is learning and getting better, you're always above the happiness line. Let's say you get an A in a class, okay? I've learned, I've done everything to do it, and I get that A, then that's fantastic. You feel great and proud of yourself. Let's say I get a C. That's still great, because I know what I learned, okay? I learned and I got better along the way. If that's my focus, is the learning, I'm going to be above the happiness line. Now, below the happiness line, you're focused on the end result. You're focused on the grade, and you're focused on getting into that good college, okay? And those are expectations. You expect those things to happen. And also, if you're focused on the end result, it doesn't matter how you get there. Learning is not as important, okay? I can cheat. I can just fill out things, not know what I'm doing. That's totally fine, as long as I get that end result. And it turns out to be an expectation. So if you get that A, you're like, yeah, I deserve that, okay? That's what I expected. If you don't get it and you miss that expectation, that's when our students lose it, okay? And they get really upset. Now, there's many ways to think about this. The other way I'm going to have you think about it is this. Think about relationships. If I have a relationship with someone and I'm focused on the end product, I'm just using that person, okay? I'm using them for something that I want, okay? And that never feels good. However, if I have a relationship with someone and I focus on the process and that relationship and building that relationship, then it's all about caring and love, and it's this wonderful thing, whether that relationship works out or not. Now, I ask you high school students, what kind of relationship do you have with school? Is it a loving, caring one, okay? Or are you just using high school? And if you're just using high school, it doesn't feel that great. Next slide, please. Now, if you're serious about changing to go from, do we have the next slide? That's okay, I'll keep going. Okay? If you're serious about changing from being in high school because you want to get into a good college to learning, here's what you have to do. Do we have it? Oh, there we go. You got to get out of your comfort zone. This is how you learn. It's not easy. It's not easy. We all have our comfort zone where we feel nice and warm and secure, okay? But the path to success and the path to learning is to get yourself out of that comfort zone and into an area of discomfort. If I'm in discomfort long enough, then pretty soon that discomfort zone becomes my new comfort zone, and my circle gets bigger, and now I have a new area beyond it. If you're a math type, that's called a fractal pattern, okay? I do a lot of talking with the math teachers around here, okay? Now, I think that path to success is also a path to happiness, because if I feel myself, if I know I'm getting better and improving and learning, then I feel pride and I feel good about myself. Now, my best story for this is before I was a teacher and before I was an assistant principal, I was a college wrestling coach. I know that's a shocker based on the short, stocky guy with the bad ears, okay? But it's true. Okay, I used to coach wrestling. Now, I was privileged enough to coach a young man named Matt Gentry, who was a 157-pound NC2A champion as a junior. Now, his senior year, he's wrestling with our 125-pounder that's significantly smaller than him. And it's after practice, and Matt's wrestling with our 125-pounder, and everyone else is gone, and I'm watching him, sitting up against the wall. And our 125-pounder was killing it. He's scoring points left and right. Okay, and then they're done, our 25-pounder leaves, and Matt walks over to me, he's got a big smile on his face. I said, "Are you okay?" And he said, "Yeah, why?" I said, "Because Tanner was cleaning your clock, okay? That whole time you were wrestling with him." I said, "Are you sure you're okay?" He said, "Yes." And this is brilliant what he said, and it's exactly why he was a much better wrestler than I ever was, okay? Even though I was his coach. Now, he said, with wrestling, there's two people, and there's a finite number of positions that two people can get into. He goes, "My goal is to get in all those positions so I know how to get out of them." He was basically making himself uncomfortable. He's making himself uncomfortable. He was getting himself in all these bad positions, but he was learning, and he loved the process. By the way, was he successful? Without a doubt. Was he happy? Yes, because his focus was learning and getting better. Next slide, please. Now, here are my recommendations just to wrap things up. That's a lot of information I tossed at you. Okay? Number one, for teachers, have your students productively struggle. And what I mean by that is if the student's learning level is here, put your lessons right above here. So they're going to have to fail and they're going to have to mess up in order to learn that thing. And you got to coach them through that. Failure's okay. Failure's great. And speaking of that, you need to worry about your grading procedures because we've got a system here that's not really conducive to learning because we start grading mistakes. And if you grade mistakes, you're not helping the learning process. Okay? You got to give students a chance to, after that grade, maybe figure it out so they can keep learning and promote that. The second thing for parents, encourage learning. When your students come home, ask them, "Hey, what did you learn today?" Not what grades you get on the math test, okay? What's the next thing coming up? What's your GPA? That sort of thing. That's not helping things. You need to encourage learning. And you also need to know, parents, that all colleges are good. I'm going to quote Mrs. Gavin, one of our health teachers. "Please explain to me what a bad college is." There aren't any, okay? And if you're someone that's focused on learning, it doesn't matter where you go to college, you're going to get a lot of information out of that, which is fantastic. And for students, here's my advice to you. My big advice, be the weird kid, okay? Be that kid that sits in the front of the class and is like, "Give me the information." Be that kid that wants to learn because it's awesome, okay? In fact, be the weird kid in everything that you do. If you're the weird kid with sports and you're focused on learning and improvement, wins will be the byproduct, but don't worry about those things. Money will be the byproduct if you're focused in your job about learning and improvement. In fact, if you're the weird kid the rest of your life, you'll always be successful and you'll always be happy. Thank you.